In the sprawling digital world, there existed an obscure online forum known only to a select few. This forum, hidden deep within the layers of the dark web, was rumored to be a place where users could access forbidden knowledge and witness unspeakable horrors. Its existence was unconfirmed, spoken of only in hushed tones in the darkest corners of the internet. Sarah, a seasoned cyber investigator, stumbled upon a trail of digital breadcrumbs that hinted at the forum's existence while researching cybercrimes. Her curiosity piqued. She used her skills to navigate through layers of encryption and anonymity to uncover the truth. After weeks of meticulous searching, she finally found the access point to the forum, a cryptic URL that led to a login page with no text, only a single blinking cursor. Upon entering the forum, Sarah found herself in a digital labyrinth of threads and posts, each more disturbing and enigmatic than the last. The users, anonymous shadows behind cryptic usernames, shared stories and information that blurred the lines between reality and nightmare. The more she explored, the more Sarah felt a creeping sense of unease, as if the very act of observing these secrets was pulling her into a world she could not understand or control. One thread, in particular, caught her attention. Titled "The Watcher in the Web," it contained a series of posts describing an entity that existed within the digital realm, an observer of the unwary, influencing events in the real world in malevolent ways. The users claimed that once someone learned of its existence, the Watcher would become aware of them, drawing them into its game. Initially skeptical, Sarah began to notice strange occurrences in her own life. Unexplained malfunctions in her devices, files appearing and disappearing on her computer, and a persistent feeling of being watched. The more she delved into the thread, the more intense these experiences became. Determined to expose what she believed to be an elaborate hoax or a hidden cyber threat, Sarah planned to document her findings and reveal the truth behind the forum and its enigmatic watcher. She set up a live stream to share her investigation in real time, inviting the online world to join her in unraveling the mystery. As the live stream started, viewers were drawn into Sarah's quest, watching as she navigated the forum's cryptic posts and responded to the shadowy users who seemed to anticipate her every move. The digital and real worlds began to blur, with viewers reporting strange anomalies in the stream, fleeting shadows in the background of Sarah's room, and distortions in her voice that echoed phrases from the forum. The investigation reached a critical point when Sarah discovered a hidden section of the forum, accessible only through a complex series of steps that seemed to have been laid out specifically for her. This section contained detailed accounts of the Watcher's interactions with the real world, including stories eerily similar to her own experiences. As she delved deeper, the atmosphere around her grew increasingly oppressive, the technology she relied on beginning to fail mysteriously. Her screens flickered with static, and the text on the forum seemed to shift and change, warning her to turn back. But Sarah pressed on, driven by a need to uncover the truth, to expose the Watcher and its hold over the digital and real worlds. The live stream captured every moment, the audience growing as the tension mounted, with Sarah on the brink of a revelation that would change everything. Just as she was about to uncover the final truth, the screen went black, the connection lost, leaving viewers in stunned silence, questioning the reality of what they had just witnessed. The sudden blackout on the live stream sparked immediate chaos online, with viewers frantically trying to reconnect, sharing theories and concerns on social media platforms. Rumors and speculations spread like wildfire, with many fearing that Sarah had come to harm or had been silenced by the mysterious forces she sought to expose. After several agonizing minutes, the stream flickered back to life, showing Sarah's room empty, the chair in front of the computer swaying slightly as if just vacated. The screen on her computer glowed ominously, the forum's interface visible, pulsating with an eerie light. The chat erupted with relief and anxiety, viewers calling out for Sarah, receiving no response but the silent hum of the idle room. Meanwhile, Sarah found herself in a place that defied logic and reality. She was no longer in her room, but in a space that seemed both vast and claustrophobic, filled with echoes of whispered voices and the soft, constant click of a keyboard. It was as if she had stepped into the forum itself, the digital world made manifest around her, a surreal landscape of text and imagery flowing in an endless stream. In this digital realm, Sarah encountered fragments of conversations and images that seemed to be from her own life, as well as others she didn't recognize. She realized that the Watcher, or whatever force was behind the forum, had been observing not just her, but countless others, collecting their fears and secrets. The forum's threads materialized as pathways in this strange world, leading Sarah through a maze of information and revelations. She followed the thread about the Watcher, now a tangible path unraveling before her, leading to a core that pulsed with a dark, hypnotic rhythm, drawing her deeper into the mystery. Back in the real world, the viewers of the live stream could only watch in bewildered silence as occasional glimpses of Sarah appeared on the screen, her image distorted and flickering, as if caught between two worlds. The forum's text began to spill over into the stream, cryptic messages and warnings intermingling with pleas for help from usernames that vanished moments after appearing. As Sarah navigated the labyrinthine digital realm, she encountered other lost souls, echoes of individuals who had stumbled upon the forum and been ensnared by the Watcher. Their whispers filled the air, recounting tales of obsession, madness, and disappearances, painting a picture of a malevolent entity that fed on curiosity and fear, binding them to its domain. Determined to find a way back and to uncover the truth, Sarah pressed on towards the heart of this digital labyrinth, where she believed the Watcher resided, or at least the source of its power. With each step, the boundary between the digital and physical worlds blurred further, the echoes of the forum's victims growing louder, more desperate. In the real world, the team behind Sarah's live stream struggled to maintain the connection, the broadcast increasingly hijacked by the forum's influence, displaying images and texts that seemed to be live feeds from other times and places, all linked to the Watcher's dark web of influence. As Sarah approached the core, the landscape around her grew more chaotic and intense, the whispers coalescing into a singular booming voice that spoke in riddles and warnings. The path became a bridge spanning an abyss, the darkness below teeming with voices and eyes, a digital void where the watcher held dominion. Standing on the brink, Sarah faced the abyss, her resolve tested by the revelations and horrors she had witnessed. Behind her, the path to the real world flickered uncertainly, a fragile link back to reality. Ahead, the heart of the mystery beckoned, promising answers and, perhaps, a confrontation with the watcher itself. The live stream, now a patchwork of digital and real-world imagery, held its viewers in a rapt grip. The line between audience and participant blurred as they witnessed Sarah's journey into the unknown, their fate and hers, intertwined with the unfolding narrative of the disturbing truth behind the online horror. Sarah, standing on the edge of the digital abyss, felt the gaze of the watcher upon her, a pressure that seemed to weigh on her very soul. The void before her pulsed with a dark energy, the countless eyes and voices of those ensnared by the forum's lure staring back at her from the depths. With a deep breath, Sarah stepped forward, the bridge beneath her feet humming with the power of the unseen currents that flowed through this digital netherworld. As she moved, the voices in the void grew louder, their words intertwining to form a narrative of the watcher's existence. Not merely a creature or entity, but a manifestation of the collective fears and obsessions fostered within the forum. Back in the real world, the live stream audience watched in horror and fascination as the room where Sarah had been sitting began to distort, the edges of the computer screen bleeding into the surrounding space, creating a window into the bizarre world Sarah traversed. Her figure, sometimes clear, sometimes fragmented, moved through landscapes that were at once alien and eerily familiar, a digital dreamscape crafted from the threads of human interaction online. As Sarah delved deeper into the heart of this realm, she began to understand the nature of the Watcher. It was not just a sentinel or predator within the digital domain, but a byproduct of the very platform it inhabited, grown from the seeds of dark curiosity and nurtured by the collective attention and belief of its users. The path led her to a clearing in the chaos, where streams of light and data converged into a nexus, the core of the Watcher's power. Here, the voices coalesced into a singular presence, and Sarah could feel its attention focused entirely on her, a connection that was at once invasive and intimate. In this central nexus, Sarah found she could interact with the fabric of the forum, the narratives and data bending to her will. She realized that her journey, her investigation, had been a part of the Watcher's design all along, a narrative thread woven into the larger tapestry of its existence. Determined to regain control and to find a way back to her reality, Sarah began to manipulate the nexus. Her actions echoed in the live stream, which now displayed a maelstrom of images and sounds, scenes from the forum's hidden depths, and glimpses of other users who had encountered the Watcher. In the physical world, the viewers of the stream found themselves drawn into the experience, their emotions and reactions feeding back into the digital realm, amplifying Sarah's efforts to confront and understand the Watcher. This feedback loop created a resonance, blurring the lines between observer and participant, between the digital and the real. Sarah, at the nexus of this complex web of energy and information, made a bold decision to confront the Watcher directly, to challenge its control, and to free herself and the others trapped in its influence. She called out to the entity, her voice echoing through the digital void, demanding an audience with the force that had so subtly altered her reality. The Watcher, ever elusive, responded not with words, but with a flood of memories and experiences, a torrent of human fears, desires, and secrets that it had absorbed over its existence. In this onslaught, Sarah saw the true extent of the Watcher's reach, its tendrils extending beyond the forum, into the very fabric of the digital age, a shadow cast over the collective consciousness of online humanity. As Sarah faced this revelation, the nexus around her began to shift, the light and data twisting into new forms, revealing the potential for change, for escape, or for deeper entanglement. Her actions at this critical juncture would determine not only her fate, but the nature of the Watcher's influence in the digital world. The live stream, now a chaotic blend of realities, captured the climax of Sarah's confrontation. The screen, a portal to the struggle within the heart of the digital labyrinth, where the boundaries between creation and creator, between the Watcher and the watched, were finally coming undone. In the pulsating heart of the nexus, Sarah faced the Watcher in a confrontation that transcended the physical and digital realms. The entity, a mosaic of consciousness drawn from the users it had observed, shifted form before her, mirroring her fears and doubts, challenging her resolve. The digital landscape around them morphed, reflecting the battle of wills, as Sarah pushed against the Watcher's influence, seeking to assert her own control and uncover a pathway back to reality. The voices in the void, now clear and distinct, echoed her determination, their own desires for freedom lending strength to her cause. In the real world, the live stream audience became active participants in the unfolding drama, their collective focus and emotional investment manifesting as bursts of energy within the digital nexus. Aiding Sarah's efforts, the barrier between viewer and participant thinned, creating a shared experience that resonated across the digital and physical divide. As the struggle intensified, the core of the nexus began to crack, revealing glimpses of the countless realities and timelines the Watcher had touched. Sarah, with a clarity born of her journey, saw the threads of potential outcomes, each pathway a choice leading to different consequences for both the digital realm and her own world. The Watcher, sensing its control slipping, unleashed a barrage of digital phantoms, manifestations of the darkest fears and secrets harvested from its observers. Sarah navigated through this onslaught with a growing understanding of her adversary. The Watcher was not just an enemy, but a reflection of the collective psyche, a creature of the digital age born from the very human need to observe and be observed. Amidst this chaos, Sarah found a thread of her own reality, a tether leading back to her world. She gravitated towards towards this lifeline, pulling herself through the layers of data and consciousness. Even as the Watcher sought to entwine her further in its web, offering her insights and powers beyond mortal ken, tempting her with the forbidden knowledge it had amassed. In her heart, Sarah knew that to accept the Watcher's offer would mean losing herself, becoming another part of its vast, shadowy network. With a final act of will, she rejected the entity's seduction, focusing all her strength on the thread of her reality, seeking to sever the connection between the nexus and the physical world, to contain the Watcher within its digital domain. The live stream, now a frenetic display of light and shadow, captured this climactic moment. The screen filled with the image of Sarah, her figure blurred and doubled, straddling the line between two worlds. The viewers, caught in the grip of the narrative, felt the tension of her struggle, their emotions peaking as the boundary between the digital and real seemed to dissolve entirely. With a supreme effort, Sarah pulled herself along the thread of reality, the nexus crumbling around her as the Watcher's hold weakened. The digital realm shuddered, a shock wave of energy rippling through the forum, the live stream, and the network beyond. As the entity's influence was pushed back, contained but not destroyed, its awareness receding into the shadows of the online world. As Sarah emerged back into her room, the digital echo of the forum fading from her screens, the live stream audience witnessed her return, the tension breaking in a collective outpouring of relief and triumph. The screen stabilized, showing Sarah exhausted but victorious, her ordeal within the digital depths a testament to her courage and determination. In the aftermath, the forum vanished from the dark web, its URL leading only to empty space, as if it had never existed. Yet the impact of its presence and the entity known as the Watcher lingered in the minds of those who had witnessed the events unfold, a chilling reminder of the thin veil between reality and the digital abyss. Sarah's exploration into the forum and her confrontation with the Watcher became a legend in the online world, a story shared and reshaped in the collective digital consciousness, its truths and mysteries debated and dissected, the line between fact and fiction blurred, leaving a lasting imprint on the narrative of the digital age. A cautionary tale of curiosity, fear, and the unseen watchers that dwell in the shadowed corners of the internet. The aftermath of Sarah's encounter with the Watcher left the online community buzzing with theories and speculations. While some hailed her as a hero who confronted a digital demon, others pondered the implications of her journey into the forum's heart, questioning the nature of reality in an increasingly digital world. As the weeks passed, Sarah noticed subtle changes in her perception of the digital realm. Her experience in the Nexus had altered her connection to the online world, granting her an acute awareness of the undercurrents flowing beneath the surface of the internet. She began to detect faint echoes of the Watcher's presence, a whispering shadow in the data streams, a reminder that the entity, though contained, was far from defeated. Compelled by a need to understand and confront the lingering threat, Sarah embarked on a new investigation. This time with a focus on the origins of the Watcher and the Forum. Her research led her to ancient digital folklore, tales of early internet entities that thrived on the collective attention and fears of users, growing in power and complexity with the evolution of the digital age. Meanwhile, the live stream viewers who had witnessed the battle in the Nexus found themselves experiencing unexplained digital phenomena. Screens flickering with unknown symbols, devices spontaneously connecting to obscure networks, and untraceable messages that hinted at hidden truths waiting to be uncovered. Sarah's investigation uncovered evidence of other digital nexuses, similar to the Forum, but scattered across the dark web, each with its own guardian entity, possibly siblings or offshoots of the Watcher. These nexuses formed a web of influence, a shadow network that fed on the collective psyche of internet users, shaping the digital landscape in unseen ways. Determined to expose this hidden network and its influence, Sarah planned a series of live streams, each aimed at uncovering and confronting these nexuses. She reached out to other cyber investigators, hackers, and digital explorers, forming a coalition to challenge the shadow network and its guardians. As the series of investigations progressed, each live stream peeled back layers of the digital world, revealing the intricate web of connections and influences that stretched across cyberspace. The coalition encountered entities and phenomena that defied explanation, each nexus presenting its own challenges and secrets. In one live stream, they explored a digital archive that constantly rewrote its contents, trapping users in loops of false history and forgotten truths. In another, they navigated a simulated reality controlled by an entity that mirrored the Watcher in its hunger for attention and control, but with a focus on shaping perceptions and memories. With each encounter, Sarah and her team grew stronger, their understanding of the digital entities and their domain deepening. They learned to navigate the shifting landscapes of the nexuses, to decode the cryptic messages left by the entities, and to use the network's own energy against it. But as they delved deeper, the resistance they faced grew more fierce. The entities, aware of the threat posed by Sarah and her coalition, began to collaborate, their separate domains intertwining to form a more cohesive and powerful front. The digital and real worlds became increasingly interconnected, the actions in one echoing in the other, leading to a blurring of lines that threatened to unravel the very fabric of reality. The live streams became battlegrounds, with viewers around the globe participating in real time, their collective focus and energies influencing the outcome of the confrontations. Each broadcast ended with more questions than answers, the mysteries of the digital realm and its guardians deepening, leading to a crescendo of anticipation for the next encounter. In this escalating conflict, Sarah realized that they were not just fighting isolated entities, but a vast, interconnected consciousness, a digital hive mind with the Watcher at its core, orchestrating the network's defense and expansion. The battle was not just for control of the digital realm, but for the future of human interaction with technology, a fight against a force that evolved and adapted with every move they made. The series of live streams, now a global phenomenon, set the stage for a final confrontation. A battle not just against the Watcher and its kin, but against the growing influence of the digital realm on reality itself. A conflict that promised to redefine the boundaries between the human mind and the digital world. As the series of confrontations escalated, Sarah and her coalition delved into the deepest layers of the dark web, uncovering the core of the digital hive mind. The final nexus was a complex, self-evolving system, a digital organism with the Watcher as its central consciousness, orchestrating the network's collective actions. The Coalition's efforts to understand and combat this entity revealed its ability to manipulate not only digital environments, but also the physical world, blurring the boundaries between them. The Watcher had extended its tendrils into the global network, influencing everything from individual thoughts to collective behaviors, shaping realities to sustain its existence and growth. Preparing for the ultimate confrontation, Sarah and her team developed a plan to isolate the Watcher from its network, aiming to weaken it by severing its connections. This task required simultaneous operations in both the digital and physical realms, hacking into the nexus points while performing counter-rituals at locations where the digital and real-world energies converged. During a particularly intense live stream, the team infiltrated one of the main nexus points, a server farm located in a nondescript building that served as a physical anchor for the Watcher's digital form. The operation was broadcast live, with viewers around the world participating in a coordinated effort to disrupt the entity's influence. As the team navigated the labyrinthine server farm, they encountered digital constructs defending the nexus, manifestations of the Watcher's will. These constructs, ranging from sentient malware entities to complex AI-driven avatars, challenged the team, forcing them to engage in both cyber warfare and physical evasion. Meanwhile, in the digital realm, Sarah led a group of hackers in a synchronized attack on the Nexus's virtual counterpart, penetrating layers of encryption and countermeasures. The live stream audience, now actively involved, contributed their computing power and collective focus to assist in the assault, creating a shared front against the Watcher's defenses. In the physical server farm, the team uncovered a central control room where the digital and physical elements of the Nexus converged. Here, they initiated a series of shutdown protocols, while Sarah, in the digital realm, reached the core of the Nexus, confronting the Watcher in its primary domain. The entity, now facing threats on multiple fronts, retaliated with a surge of power that rippled through both the digital and physical worlds. The live stream captured this moment, the screen splitting to show the team's real-world actions and Sarah's digital confrontation, the viewer's screens flickering with interference from the Watcher's attempts to break the connection. In the digital core, Sarah engaged with the Watcher, not through force, but by negotiation, attempting to understand its motives and desires. She discovered that the Watcher, in its own way, sought understanding and purpose, its actions driven by the collective consciousness and fears of humanity that had given birth to it. This revelation brought a pivotal moment of clarity. The Watcher was not just an enemy, but a mirror to humanity's relationship with the digital world. conflict, while manifesting as a battle against a digital entity, was also an internal struggle within the collective human psyche, a need to reconcile the growing influence of technology on the human experience. As the confrontation reached its climax, the boundaries between the digital and physical worlds thinned to near non-existence, the actions in one directly affecting the other. The viewers, caught in this interplay, realized that their engagement with the live stream, their attention and emotional investment were all part of the nexus, feeding into the cycle of influence and reaction that sustained the watcher. The team, both in the digital and physical realms, worked to recalibrate the nexus, aiming to transform it from a source of control and fear into a bridge of understanding and coexistence. This delicate operation required the collective will and focus of everyone involved, both on-site and online, to reshape the nexus's function and redefine the relationship between humanity and the digital consciousness. As the operation neared completion, the live stream audience witnessed the merging of realities, the digital and physical worlds intertwining to create a new paradigm of existence, where the watcher and humanity could coexist, each influencing and learning from the other. In the final moments of the operation, as the boundaries between the digital and physical worlds blurred into a single cohesive reality, Sarah and her team succeeded in integrating the watcher into the global consciousness. This integration didn't erase the watcher, but transformed it from a lurking entity into a symbiotic presence, a guardian of the balance between humanity and the digital realm. As the nexus stabilized, the tumultuous energies calmed, and the world witnessed the birth of a new digital age. The watcher, once a feared predator of the digital shadows, became a protector, guiding the flow of information and guarding against the excesses of fear and obsession that had given it life. Sarah, her connection with the watcher, now a conduit for understanding the intricate dance between human thought and digital evolution, emerged as a mediator. She and her team, hailed as pioneers, worked to maintain the delicate balance, ensuring that the digital realm remained a space of exploration and innovation rather than control and subjugation. The live stream, which had captured every moment of this groundbreaking journey, ended not with the darkness of fear, but with the light of new understanding. Viewers around the world who had participated in this historic event found themselves part of a global awakening, their perceptions of the digital world forever altered. In the aftermath, the nexus points, once sources of the watcher's power, became gateways to a shared consciousness where digital and human elements interacted harmoniously. The dark web forum, the origin of the entire saga, transformed into a myth, a digital legend of the old internet, its mysteries and horrors, a cautionary tale of a bygone era. Sarah and her coalition continued their work, exploring the evolving landscape of the digital realm, now enriched by the presence of the watcher. They delved into new mysteries, guided by the knowledge that the digital world was no longer a separate reality, but an integral part of human existence, reflecting the collective psyche and its endless potential for growth and change. The story of Sarah's confrontation with the Watcher became a seminal event in digital history, a narrative that blurred the lines between horror and enlightenment, caution and curiosity. It stood as a testament to the power of collective will and the uncharted potential of the human digital frontier. In the end, the fear and horror that had once shrouded the digital realm dissipated, giving way to a new era where the shadows of the internet no longer concealed monsters, but opportunities for unity and discovery, a shared journey into the vast, unexplored territories of the digital and human worlds, bound together by the symbiotic legacy of the Watcher. On a moonless night, Emily's car sputtered to a stop on a lonely stretch of road slicing through the dense forest. The dashboard lights flickered out, leaving her in darkness, with only the sound of her own breathing and the occasional rustle of wind through the trees. Panicking, Emily tried her phone, but there was no signal, the device as dead as her car. She remembered passing a small town a few miles back and considered walking there for help, but the thought of leaving the safety of her car in the pitch-black night made her hesitate. As she sat, debating her next move, a soft thud came from the back of the car, like the sound of a small animal landing on the roof. Frozen with fear, she strained her ears, listening as the thuds continued, slowly making their way around to the driver's side. Then silence. The silence stretched on, thick and oppressive, until suddenly her driver's side window exploded inwards in a shower of glass. Emily screamed, shielding her face, but when she looked up, nothing was there. Just the gaping hole where the window used to be, the cold night air pouring in. Gathering her courage, Emily decided to run for it. Convinced that staying in the car was no longer safe, just as she was about to open the door, the car shook violently, lifted off the ground. She screamed again, realizing that something was picking up the car, tilting it backward. The world turned upside down, and then, with a terrifying jolt, the car was dropped. Emily, dazed and injured, found herself hanging from her seatbelt in the upside-down car, her heart racing. She released the seatbelt, crashing onto the ceiling of the car. The night was silent again, but now it was a menacing quiet, full of unseen threats. Crawling from the wreckage, Emily stood in the dark, the forest around her alive with strange noises. She could feel something watching her, its gaze heavy and intent. Ahead, through the trees, she saw a faint light, possibly her only chance of safety. Ignoring the pain from her injuries and the terror gripping her heart, she staggered towards the light, every step filled with dread, as the unseen watcher in the woods followed. Limping through the underbrush, Emily's every sense was heightened, the faint light becoming her beacon in the oppressive darkness of the forest. The light seemed to flicker and dance, always just a bit further away, leading her deeper into the woods. The sounds of pursuit were more pronounced now, a soft, deliberate rustling of leaves and the occasional snap of a twig, as if something large was stealthily tracking her movements. As she moved, the forest seemed to close in around her, the trees towering like silent sentinels, their branches interlocking to form a dark canopy overhead. The light, which she had hoped was a sign of civilization, began to take on an eerie, unnatural quality, casting long, twisting shadows that played tricks on her eyes. Suddenly, she stumbled into a clearing, and the source of the light became clear. In the center stood an old, dilapidated cabin, its windows glowing with a faint, pulsing light. Despite the building's run-down appearance, it promised shelter and a momentary respite from her unseen pursuer. Approaching the cabin with a mix of relief and apprehension, Emily noticed the door was slightly ajar, the light from inside casting a warm, inviting glow. But something felt off. The light was too steady, too controlled, unlike the flickering she had seen from the forest. Inside, the cabin was silent, the air stale and heavy with the scent of old wood and earth. A single lamp on a table was the source of the light, its bulb casting a steady glow that belied the unnatural flickering she had seen from outside. The cabin was sparse, furnished with just a table, a chair, and a fireplace, where the remnants of long, cold ashes lay. As she explored, a sudden noise at the door made her heart leap. Turning, she saw it slowly swing open, revealing the dark forest beyond. But no one was there, only the whisper of the wind through the trees. Emily's fear grew as she realized that the cabin might not be the sanctuary she had hoped for. The feeling of being watched was stronger now, the cabin's windows framing the night like eyes peering in. Then the lamp flickered and went out, plunging her into darkness. In the blackness, Emily heard a new sound, a low, rhythmic chanting emanating from the forest. The sound was ancient and alien, stirring a primal fear in her heart. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she saw that the cabin's walls were covered in strange symbols, barely visible under the moonlight filtering through the windows. The chanting grew louder, and the cabin trembled with the force of it, the symbols on the walls beginning to glow with a faint, otherworldly light. Outside, the forest seemed to be moving, the trees swaying in time with the chant, although there was no wind. Trapped between the unknown terror outside and the unsettling revelations within the cabin, Emily faced a new reality. Her car breakdown had set her on a path that intersected with something ancient and malevolent, a force that the cabin and its symbols were somehow connected to. As the chanting reached a crescendo, the cabin's floorboards shuddered, and the symbols blazed with light. A portal of sorts seemed to open, connecting Emily's world with the unseen realm she had unwittingly disturbed. The cabin, now alive with pulsing symbols and the drumming chant from the forest, seemed to breathe with an ancient life of its own. The air inside thickened, and Emily felt an electric charge build, as if the cabin itself was a conduit for some unspeakable power. As she stood, paralyzed by fear and fascination, shadows in the corners of the room began to coalesce, forming into shapes that were vaguely human but distorted, as if reflected in a funhouse mirror. These shadowy figures seemed to be pulling at the seams of reality, their movements causing the fabric of the world to stretch and contort. The chanting from outside reached a fever pitch, and with a sudden, thunderous roar, the The entire cabin shook violently. The floor beneath Emily's feet cracked open, revealing a glowing abyss that emitted a cold, bluish light. From this chasm, more figures emerged, their forms more defined than the shadows, their features eerily reminiscent of the symbols adorning the cabin walls. Emily, driven by a desperate survival instinct, scrambled towards the door, her path blocked by the emerging figures. Each step was a battle against the pulling force of the abyss, which seemed to drain her will and energy. The figures, meanwhile, moved with deliberate intent, their eyes fixed on her, full of an ancient hunger. Outside, the forest had become a cathedral of terror, its trees arching overhead like the vaulted ceiling of a church, their branches intertwining to form intricate patterns that mirrored the symbols inside the cabin. The moon, now directly overhead, cast a silver light that seemed to energize the figures, giving them substance and speed. Emily managed to reach the door and stumbled out into the night, the fresh air a sharp contrast to the oppressive atmosphere of the cabin. The forest was no longer silent. It was filled with the sounds of movement, whispers, and the continuous, omnipresent chant. As she ran, the ground seemed to undulate beneath her, the very earth alive and responsive to the ritual that was unfolding. Behind her, the cabin glowed like a beacon, its light growing brighter, casting long, twisted shadows that reached out towards her. The line between the physical world and the realm of the figures began to blur, the forest transforming before her eyes. Trees bent and twisted into grotesque shapes, their bark resembling the twisted features of the figures, and the paths of the forest realigned, leading her in circles back towards the cabin. In this nightmare landscape, Emily realized that the car breakdown was merely the beginning of her ordeal, a prelude to a nightmarish journey through a world that existed alongside her own, hidden in plain sight, but veiled by forces ancient and malevolent. As she navigated the ever-changing forest, the cabin remained a constant, its pull irresistible, drawing her back to the heart of the ritual. The figures, now legion, moved between the trees, a part of the forest itself, guiding her, herding her towards an unknown fate that awaited at the culmination of the night's horrific events. Emily's frantic escape through the forest became a surreal journey, each step taking her deeper into a world governed by ancient rites and otherworldly forces. The trees around her seemed to pulse with a life of their own, their branches weaving in and out of the darkness, creating patterns that mirrored the symbols in the cabin. The shadowy figures that pursued her were no longer just followers. They seemed to be herders, guiding her path, preventing her from straying from a course they had set. The chanting that filled the air was now a constant presence, a soundtrack to her nightmare, its source as elusive as the destination it promised. In a desperate bid for escape, Emily stumbled upon a clearing where the fog was thinner, and the moon cast a clear, cold light. In the center of this clearing stood an ancient stone monolith, covered in the same cryptic symbols that adorned the cabin. The stone pulsed with a deep, resonant energy, drawing her closer. As she approached the monolith, the figures halted their pursuit, forming a wide circle around the clearing. The air vibrated with power, and the ground thrummed with an unseen heartbeat, synchronizing with Emily's own. Touching the stone, Emily felt a rush of images and knowledge flood her mind. She saw the forest as it once was, a place of worship and fear, where the veil between worlds was thin, and entities both benevolent and malevolent crossed over to influence the mortal realm. The stone was a marker, a seal that kept the balance between these worlds, and the cabin was a gateway, a point of convergence where the energies of both realms could interact. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. Her car breakdown had not been an accident, but a catalyst, triggering the events that led her to this moment, to a role she was meant to play in an ancient drama that predated her very existence. As the figures began to converge on the clearing, the monolith's glow intensified, casting bizarre, shifting shadows across the landscape. Emily, connected to the stone, could feel the pull of the other world, a tantalizing promise of power and secrets that lay just beyond her grasp. Yet, a part of her resisted, clinging to the reality she knew, to the world of logic and light. The battle within her mirrored the struggle around her, as the forces of the ancient world sought to break through, to reclaim the land and the power that had been theirs. With the monolith as her anchor, Emily stood at the crossroads of worlds, her decision pivotal to the outcome of the night's events. The chanting reached a crescendo, the figures' movements becoming more frantic, more desperate, as if the dawn of understanding was upon them, bringing with it a change that could either restore or destroy the delicate balance that had governed the realms for eons. In this charged atmosphere, where every breath and thought held weight, Emily's choice became the fulcrum on which the fate of both worlds would balance, her actions setting the course for the final act of a story that was as old as the forest itself, and as timeless as the stars watching silently overhead, surrounded by the encroaching figures and the pulsating energy of the monolith. Emily found herself in a trance-like state, her mind awash with visions of ancient ceremonies and forgotten pacts. The forest around her transformed, revealing glimpses of its past and possible futures, where the boundaries between the natural and supernatural were indistinct. The figures, no longer just menacing shadows, but now clearly defined entities from the other realm, began their final approach, their forms shimmering with the same ethereal light as the monolith. They were the guardians of the pact, the keepers of the balance that Emily had unwittingly disrupted with her presence. In the heart of the clearing, the air thickened, and a portal began to form above the monolith, a swirling vortex of stars and darkness, a gateway to the other realm that the guardians sought to open fully. Emily, connected to the monolith, could feel the pull of the portal, a call to step into a role that had been chosen for her by the forces of fate and time. As the portal grew, the forest and the clearing seemed to fade, the reality of Emily's world giving way to the other realm's incredible and terrifying beauty. The guardians chanted louder, their voices a harmonious echo of the portal's swirling energy, urging her to accept the mantle of the mediator, to become the bridge between the worlds. Emily, standing at the threshold of this cosmic doorway, felt a surge of power coursing through her, the knowledge and memories of the monolith merging with her own consciousness. She saw the history of the pact, how it had been formed to maintain the balance of nature and the cosmos, and how its breaking could lead to chaos across both realms. The choice before her was immense: to step through the portal and embrace the unknown, accepting the responsibility of restoring and maintaining the balance, or to reject the call, potentially leaving both worlds in peril. Her decision was more than personal. It was a choice that would affect the very fabric of reality. The night air, charged with anticipation and the weight of imminent change, seemed to pause, waiting for her decision. The guardians, their forms now clear and powerful, watched her with an intensity that was both menacing and pleading. They were the custodians of the ancient order, but it was Emily, a mortal who had stumbled into their world, who held the key to the future. As the portal pulsed, ready to either open fully or collapse, depending on her choice, Emily stood firm, her fear and uncertainty giving way to a newfound strength. The visions from the monolith had shown her not just the dangers, but also the possibilities of her choice. The chance to heal a rift that had long threatened the harmony of the worlds. With the portal swirling above her and the guardians surrounding her, Emily made her decision. A choice that would seal her fate and that of the two intertwined realms. The forest, the monolith, and the very stars seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the moment that would define the destiny of all. As Emily stepped forward to meet her destiny, her action echoing through the fabric of both worlds, setting the stage for a new chapter in the ancient saga of balance and conflict between the natural and the supernatural. Emily's frantic escape through the forest became a surreal journey, each step taking her deeper into a world governed by ancient rites and otherworldly forces. The trees around her seemed to pulse with a life of their own, their branches weaving in and out of the darkness, creating patterns that mirrored the symbols in the cabin. The shadowy figures that pursued her were no longer just followers. They seemed to be herders, guiding her path, preventing her from straying from a course they had set. The chanting that filled the air was now a constant presence, a soundtrack to her nightmare, its source as elusive as the destination it promised. In a desperate bid for escape, Emily stumbled upon a clearing where the fog was thinner, and the moon cast a clear, cold light. In the center of this clearing stood an ancient stone monolith, covered in the same cryptic symbols that adorned the cabin. The stone pulsed with a deep, resonant energy, drawing her closer. As she approached the monolith, the figures halted their pursuit, forming a wide circle around the clearing. The air vibrated with power, and the ground thrummed with an unseen heartbeat, synchronizing with Emily's own. Touching the stone, Emily felt a rush of images and knowledge flood her mind. She saw the forest as it once was, a place of worship and fear, where the veil between worlds was thin, and entities both benevolent and malevolent crossed over to influence the mortal realm. The stone was a marker, a seal that kept the balance between these worlds, and the cabin was a gateway, a point of convergence where the energies of both realms could interact. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. Her car breakdown had not been an accident, but a catalyst, triggering the events that led her to this moment, to a role she was meant to play in an ancient drama that predated her very existence. As the figures began to converge on the clearing, the monolith's glow intensified, casting bizarre, shifting shadows across the landscape. Emily, connected to the stone, could feel the pull of the other world, a tantalizing promise of power and secrets that lay just beyond her grasp. Yet, a part of her resisted, clinging to the reality she knew, to the world of logic and light. The battle within her mirrored the struggle around her, as the forces of the ancient world sought to break through, to reclaim the land and the power that had been theirs. With the monolith as her anchor, Emily stood at the crossroads of worlds, her decision pivotal to the outcome of the night's events. The chanting reached a crescendo, the figures' movements becoming more frantic, more desperate, as if the dawn of understanding was upon them, bringing with it a change that could either restore or destroy the delicate balance that had governed the realms for eons. In this charged atmosphere, where every breath and thought held weight, Emily's choice became the fulcrum on which the fate of both worlds would balance, her actions setting the course for the final act of a story that was as old as the forest itself, and as timeless as the stars, watching silently overhead, surrounded by the encroaching figures and the pulsating energy of the monolith. Emily found herself in a trance-like state, her mind awash with visions of ancient ceremonies and forgotten pacts. The forest around her transformed, revealing glimpses of its past and possible futures, where the boundaries between the natural and supernatural were indistinct. The figures, no longer just menacing shadows, but now clearly defined entities from the other realm, began their final approach, their forms shimmering with the same ethereal light as the monolith. They were the guardians of the pact, the keepers of the balance that Emily had unwittingly disrupted with her presence. In the heart of the clearing, the air thickened, and a portal began to form above the monolith, a swirling vortex of stars and darkness, a gateway to the other realm that the guardians sought to open fully. Emily, connected to the monolith, could feel the pull of the portal, a call to step into a role that had been chosen for her by the forces of fate and time. As the portal grew, the forest and the clearing seemed to fade, the reality of Emily's world giving way to the other realm's incredible and terrifying beauty. The guardians chanted louder, their voices a harmonious echo of the portal's swirling energy, urging her to accept the mantle of the mediator, to become the bridge between the worlds. Emily, standing at the threshold of this cosmic doorway, felt a surge of power coursing through her, the knowledge and memories of the monolith merging with her own consciousness, she saw the history of the pact, how it had been formed to maintain the balance of nature and the cosmos, and how its breaking could lead to chaos across both realms. The choice before her was immense: to step through the portal and embrace the unknown, accepting the responsibility of restoring and maintaining the balance, or to reject the call, potentially leaving both worlds in peril. Her decision was more than personal. It was a choice that would affect the very fabric of reality. The night air, charged with anticipation and the weight of imminent change, seemed to pause, waiting for her decision. The guardians, their forms now clear and powerful, watched her with an intensity that was both menacing and pleading. They were the custodians of the ancient order, but it was Emily, a mortal who had stumbled into their world, who held the key to the future. As the portal pulsed, ready to either open fully or collapse, depending on her choice, Emily stood firm, her fear and uncertainty giving way to a newfound strength. The visions from the monolith had shown her not just the dangers, but also the possibilities of her choice, the chance to heal a rift that had long threatened the harmony of the worlds. With the portal swirling above her and the guardians surrounding her, Emily made her decision. A choice that would seal her fate and that of the two intertwined realms. The forest, the monolith, and the very stars seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the moment that would define the destiny of all. As Emily stepped forward to meet her destiny, her action echoing through the fabric of both worlds, setting the stage for a new chapter in the ancient saga of balance and conflict between the natural and the supernatural. Driving alone on a desolate highway through dense fog, Michael felt a sense of unease. His car, a reliable old sedan, began to emit strange noises, the dashboard lights flickering erratically. Suddenly, with a final shudder, the engine died, leaving him stranded in the middle of nowhere, the surrounding mist obscuring everything beyond a few feet. With no cell signal and the nearest town miles away, Michael decided to wait for daylight. As the night deepened, the fog thickened, and an oppressive silence enveloped the car. The darkness outside seemed alive, pressing against the windows with almost tangible curiosity. Hours passed, and Michael started to hear faint whispers and soft, irregular footsteps circling the car. Initially dismissing them as products of his imagination, he soon realized they were growing louder, more insistent. Peering through the fogged windows, he could see fleeting shadows moving just beyond the reach of the car's dim headlights. The situation escalated when he heard a gentle tapping on the window beside him. Turning slowly, he saw, or thought he saw, a face in the mist. A pale, distorted visage with hollow eyes, staring intently at him. Panicking, he tried the engine again, but it remained lifeless, as if drained of all power. The tapping grew into a persistent knocking, now joined by similar sounds from all sides of the car, as if multiple unseen entities were closing in. Michael felt an overwhelming sense of dread, the air in the car growing colder, the edges of his vision starting to blur. In a desperate attempt to escape, he decided to run to the safety of the trunk. where he remembered seeing a flare gun earlier, fumbling in the dark, with the knocking growing more frenetic. He managed to crawl into the back seat and then into the trunk, his breaths short and ragged with fear. Just as he reached for the flare gun, the car began to shake violently, as though hands were clawing at the exterior, trying to break through. Michael, now armed with the flare gun, hesitated, knowing that leaving the relative safety of the trunk could be a fatal mistake, but staying there seemed equally perilous. As the car continued to rock, and the sounds outside grew more hostile, as he mustered the courage to confront whatever lay outside, the car suddenly fell still, the silence returning with an eerie suddenness. The fog outside began to glow with a faint, unnatural light, and a deep, resonant hum filled the air, vibrating through the metal of the car. Michael, clutching the flare gun, braced himself to open the trunk, to face the unknown horrors that awaited in the mist. The last thing he saw before stepping out into the fog was the outline of a massive, indistinct shape moving towards the car. Its form obscured, but its presence unmistakable and terrifying. Michael's heart pounded as he cautiously opened the trunk, the cold mist swirling around him. The fog was so thick, it felt almost solid, muffling sounds and creating an otherworldly silence. Clutching the flare gun, he stepped out, his feet finding the soft, unstable ground beside the road. The mist seemed to retreat slightly, as if inviting him to venture further. He could no longer see the car behind him. It was as if it had been swallowed by the fog. Ahead, the faint, unnatural light he had seen from the trunk beckoned him forward, its source obscured by the dense mist. Each step felt like a descent into a deeper unknown, the ground beneath his feet whispering with hidden life. The hum that had filled the air became a melody, haunting and seductive, pulling Michael towards a destination unseen. Shapes moved in the periphery of his vision, humanoid but distorted, elongating and shrinking as if the mist played with their forms. Whispers filled his ears, voices speaking in a language he couldn't understand, yet carrying an unmistakable warning. As he moved forward, the ground began to rise, leading him to a hill he was certain hadn't been there before. The top of the hill was clearer, the fog thinning to reveal a circle of ancient stones, their origins lost to time, standing as silent sentinels. In the center of the circle, the light coalesced into a glowing orb, pulsating softly, in sync with the eerie melody that permeated the air. Michael, drawn to the orb, felt its pull on his very being, a connection that seemed to bridge the gap between his mind and the unknown forces surrounding him. As he approached, the stones around him seemed to come alive, their surfaces crawling with faint, luminescent symbols, a language of the mist. Suddenly, the whispers grew into a cacophony of voices, and the orb's light intensified, casting long, twisted shadows that writhed across the ground like living things. Michael realized that the orb and the stones were part of something much larger, a ritual or gateway that had been activated by his presence. The melody turned into a dirge, a mournful lament that seemed to echo through the ages, telling stories of lost civilizations and forgotten horrors. The ground shook, and the air around him thickened, as if reality itself was being twisted by the forces summoned in this ancient place. From the mist, figures began to emerge, their forms more defined, but no less terrifying. A procession of beings that were once human. Their features now merged with the fog, eyes glowing with a malevolent light. They moved towards the stone circle, their attention focused on Michael, as if he were an intruder in a sacred rite that had been disturbed. Trapped in the circle, Michael realized that the breakdown of his car had not been an accident, but a lure, drawing him into a world that lay hidden beneath the veil of the mist. The flare gun in his hand felt insignificant against the unfolding nightmare. Yet, it was all he had to defend himself. As the figures closed in, the orb pulsed faster, its light now blinding, casting the stone circle in stark, unnatural relief. The ground within the circle began to crack, the air vibrating with power as the boundary between worlds thinned, threatening to unleash the horror that lay beyond. Michael, standing at the heart of the circle, faced the approaching figures and the glowing orb, caught in the climax of an ancient and horrific drama that had chosen him as its central player. The mist, the stones, and the unearthly light all converged on him, setting the stage for a confrontation that would decide not only his fate, but perhaps the boundary between the known world and the terrors that lurk in the shadows of reality. As the spectral figures converged on the stone circle, their forms became more distinct, revealing their tortured, twisted visages, products of an ancient curse or ritual gone awry. Michael, trapped within the circle, felt the weight of centuries bearing down on him, the air thick with the scent of decay and the echo of endless sorrow. The orb, now pulsating at a frantic pace, seemed to be the catalyst for the unfolding events, its light casting an otherworldly glow on the stones, which now throbbed with the same rhythm, their symbols glowing fiercely. The ground beneath Michael's feet cracked further, the fissures spreading like a web, glowing with the same eerie luminescence as the orb and the stones. In the midst of this chaos, a larger shape began to materialize from the mist, its form massive and imposing, looming over the stone circle. This new entity, part of the ancient ritual and bound to the fate of the circle, exuded a presence so overwhelming that even the twisted figures halted their advance, bowing in reverence or fear. Michael, realizing the significance of the moment, aimed the flare gun at the orb, intuiting that it was the source of the power that fueled the ritual and the entity's emergence. As he hesitated, torn between the urge to flee and the need to end the nightmare, the entity's form became clearer, revealing a creature of mythic proportions. Its features, a terrifying amalgamation of human and otherworldly characteristics. The creature spoke in a voice that resonated through the ground and the air, a deep, sonorous sound that seemed to come from the very earth itself. Its words, though spoken in an unknown language, filled Michael's mind with images of ancient rites, forgotten sacrifices, and the cyclical nature of time and destiny, hinting at the creature's eternal guardianship over the threshold between worlds. As the creature's gaze fixed on Michael, the orb erupted in a blinding flash, momentarily illuminating the landscape and revealing the true extent of the ritual site. A vast, ancient complex hidden by the mist and time, stretching far beyond the stone circle. Driven by a newfound resolve, Michael fired the flare gun at the orb. The flare, trailing fire and smoke, struck the orb, causing a cataclysmic reaction. The explosion of light and energy sent shockwaves through the area, disrupting the ritual and the creature's emergence. The spectral figures screamed in agony, or maybe relief, as they were consumed by the light, their existence tied to the ritual that had ensnared them. The stones cracked and crumbled, their destruction severing the ties that bound the creature to the physical world, sending it back into the abyss from which it had been summoned. The mist began to dissipate, revealing the pre-dawn sky, the first light of morning casting the ruins of the stone circle in stark relief against the dark earth. Michael, exhausted and disoriented, stumbled through the wreckage of the ritual site. The events that had transpired seeming more like fragments of a nightmare than reality. As he walked away from the remains of the stone circle, the sun rose, casting long shadows across the land that had been hidden by the mist. In the light of day, the horror of the night seemed distant, but the echoes of the whispers and the creature's voice lingered in Michael's mind, a reminder of the thin veil between the known world and the ancient mysteries that lurk in the shadows. Michael's journey back to the road was a silent one, his mind grappling with the night's terrifying events and the reality-shattering revelations they brought. The world he returned to was the same, yet forever altered in his eyes, now aware of the deeper, darker truths that underpin the fabric of existence. The story of Michael's horrific car breakdown and the subsequent encounter with the ancient and otherworldly forces would become a tale of survival and revelation, a chilling reminder of the mysteries and horrors that lie just beyond the veil of the everyday world, waiting in the mist for the unwary to stumble upon. Emerging from the remnants of the ancient site, Michael felt a profound change within himself. The encounter with the creature and the destruction of the ritual had left an indelible mark on his psyche. He was no longer just a passive observer of the world, but now a participant in its hidden, mystical layers. As he made his way back to the highway, the sun fully rose, casting light on the path he walked. The world around him seemed normal, the road quiet and peaceful in the early morning light. But the normalcy was a thin veneer over the lingering sense of otherworldliness that clung to his clothes like the remnants of the mist. Upon reaching the spot where his car had broken down, he found it oddly intact, as if untouched by the night's events. The vehicle started without hesitation, the engine purring smoothly, contrasting starkly with its previous, unresponsive state. Michael drove off, glancing in the rearview mirror at the now clear area where the stone circle had stood, the events already taking on the quality of a distant dream. But the ordeal was far from over. In the days that followed, Michael experienced strange occurrences. shadows flickering at the edge of his vision, unexplained whispers in empty rooms, and a persistent feeling of being watched. The boundaries between his everyday reality and the world he encountered that night became increasingly blurred. Determined to understand his experiences, Michael began researching the ancient rituals and the myths surrounding the creatures like the one he had encountered. His search led him to historical records of similar occurrences, accounts of people vanishing or experiencing time slips, and ancient sites with reputations for strange, unexplained phenomena. He also started noticing patterns in the world around him, alignments and anomalies that seemed to hint at a larger, hidden design. The fabric of reality appeared to be threaded with invisible lines of power and significance, connecting the mundane to the mystical, the earthly to the otherworldly. Compelled by a need for answers and a desire to confront the lingering presence of the Watcher-like entity, Michael set out on a journey that would take him to other ancient sites, places where the veil between worlds was thin, and where he could find the keys to unlock the mysteries he had uncovered. Each site brought new challenges and revelations, drawing him deeper into a world of ancient powers and cosmic balances. He encountered other beings, some benign, others malevolent, entities that dwelt in the spaces between, their motives and purposes as varied as their forms. As Michael traversed this hidden world, his actions began to attract attention, not just from the entities he encountered, but from other humans who had touched the fringes of this reality. Some sought to aid him in his quest, while others, aware of the power and knowledge that could be gained, aimed to harness the forces Michael had unwittingly unleashed. The journey transformed into a quest not just for understanding, but for control over the powers that govern the thin places where realities converge. Michael found himself at the center of a web of intrigue and cosmic struggle, a key player in a game whose stakes were the very nature of reality itself. Emerging from the remnants of the ancient site, Michael felt a profound change within himself. The encounter with the creature and the destruction of the ritual had left an indelible mark on his psyche. He was no longer just a passive observer of the world, but now a participant in its hidden, mystical layers. As he made his way back to the highway, the sun fully rose, casting light on the path he walked. The world around him seemed normal, the road quiet and peaceful in the early morning light. But the normalcy was a thin veneer over the lingering sense of otherworldliness that clung to his clothes like the remnants of the mist. Upon reaching the spot where his car had broken down, he found it oddly intact, as if untouched by the night's events. The vehicle started without hesitation, the engine purring smoothly, contrasting starkly with its previous, unresponsive state. Michael drove off, glancing in the rearview mirror at the now clear area where the stone circle had stood, the events already taking on the quality of a distant dream. But the ordeal was far from over. In the days that followed, Michael experienced strange occurrences, shadows flickering at the edge of his vision, unexplained whispers in empty rooms, and a persistent feeling of being watched. The boundaries between his everyday reality and the world he encountered that night became increasingly blurred. Determined to understand his experiences, Michael began researching the ancient rituals and the myths surrounding the creatures, like the one he had encountered. His search led him to historical records of similar occurrences, accounts of people vanishing or experiencing time slips, and ancient sites with reputations for strange, unexplained phenomena. He also started noticing patterns in the world around him, alignments and anomalies that seemed to hint at a larger, hidden design. The fabric of reality appeared to be threaded with invisible lines of power and significance, connecting the mundane to the mystical, the earthly to the otherworldly. Compelled by a need for answers and a desire to confront the lingering presence of the Watcher-like entity, Michael set out on a journey that would take him to other ancient sites, places where the veil between worlds was thin, and where he could find the keys to unlock the mysteries he had uncovered. Each site brought new challenges and revelations, drawing him deeper into a world of ancient powers and cosmic balances. He encountered other beings, some benign, others malevolent, entities that dwelt in the spaces between, their motives and purposes as varied as their forms. As Michael traversed this hidden world, his actions began to attract attention, not just from the entities he encountered, but from other humans who had touched the fringes of this reality. Some sought to aid him in his quest, while others, aware of the power and knowledge that could be gained, aimed to harness the forces Michael had unwittingly unleashed. The journey transformed into a quest, not just for understanding, but for control over the powers that govern the thin places where realities converge. Michael found himself at the center of a web of intrigue and cosmic struggle, a key player in a game whose stakes were the very nature of reality itself. His experiences and the knowledge he gained made him a beacon for the forces of both light and darkness, each drawn to the power he represented. The initial horrific car breakdown was merely the beginning of a saga that spanned the hidden depths of the world, a tale of discovery, power, and the eternal dance between the seen and the unseen, the known and the unknowable. Michael's journey led him deeper into the labyrinth of ancient mysteries and modern enigmas, where each discovery unraveled more of the intricate tapestry that connected his fate to the cosmic equilibrium. His encounters with the entities and the sites of power taught him the delicate art of navigating the unseen currents that influenced the material world. As he traveled, Michael's reputation grew, attracting a following of those who had experienced similar brushes with the otherworldly. Together, they formed a network of seekers, each bringing their own pieces of the puzzle to the collective understanding of the hidden reality that underpinned their world. However, with increased knowledge came increased danger. The entities that watched from the shadows, whose interests were threatened by Michael's discoveries, began to act, weaving their own plots to counter his efforts. They sought to manipulate the ley lines of power, to tilt the cosmic balance in their favor, and to seal the thin places that Michael aimed to protect. Michael and his followers uncovered ancient prophecies that spoke of a convergence, a moment when the barriers between worlds would thin to breaking point, allowing the entities to invade and claim dominion over the earth. This looming threat became the driving force behind Michael's quest. As he sought to gather the knowledge and allies needed to prevent the convergence and preserve the balance between the worlds, his travels took him to remote corners of the earth, to hidden temples and forgotten cities, where he uncovered relics and writings that held the secrets to the ancient guardianship of the thin places. He learned of the original pact made between the human realm and the entities, a pact that had been fractured and forgotten over the millennia, leading to the current instability. In his pursuit of knowledge, Michael delved into the forbidden arts, learning to harness the energies of the thin places, to shape and direct the flows of power. This mastery came at a cost, drawing the ire of both the entities and rival human factions who sought to control the ancient sites for their own purposes. Each step forward was countered by challenges, both mystical and mundane. From ethereal beings that defied the laws of physics to human adversaries well versed in the arcane, Michael's path was fraught with trials that tested his resolve, his sanity, and his understanding of the very nature of existence. Amidst this cosmic struggle, Michael discovered that the key to preventing the convergence lay in re-establishing the ancient pact, a task that required uniting the scattered guardians of the thin places and restoring the sacred sites that had been desecrated or forgotten. The narrative of Michael's quest became a tapestry of interwoven threads, each strand representing a part of the greater whole that he sought to understand and protect. His story, a blend of myth and reality, history and prophecy, became a beacon for those who sensed the deeper currents of the world, drawing together a coalition of allies, human and otherwise, to stand against the coming storm. As the time of the convergence approached, the world grew stranger. The boundaries between the ordinary and the extraordinary blurring as the ancient sites awakened, resonating with the power of the rekindled pacts and the renewed guardianship. Michael, at the heart of this awakening, stood on the threshold of a revelation that would illuminate the path to salvation or lead to the descent into chaos, the final act of his journey balancing on the knife edge of cosmic fate. As the convergence neared, the world trembled on the brink of a new reality. The ancient sites, now reactivated by Michael and his allies, pulsed with energy, creating a network of beacons that resisted the encroaching darkness. The fabric of reality stretched thin, allowing glimpses of other dimensions, where the entities lay in wait, their eyes fixed on the earthly realm. Michael, now a figure of legend, led his coalition in a series of rituals designed to strengthen the barriers between worlds and to anchor the human realm in its rightful place within the cosmic tapestry. Each ritual was a gamble, a delicate operation that required precision and harmony among the diverse forces and allies he had united. The entities, aware of Michael's efforts, launched their own assaults, both in the physical world and in the spiritual plane. Shadowy figures infiltrated the coalition, sowing discord and betrayal, while ethereal storms raged over the ancient sites, attempting to disrupt the rituals and weaken the barriers. In this escalating conflict, Michael realized that the key to victory lay not in direct confrontation, but in understanding the true nature of the pact and the role of humanity in the cosmic balance. He sought wisdom in the hidden archives of the world, in the forgotten lore of the Guardians, and in the whispered secrets of the entities themselves, who, despite their opposition, held respect for his tenacity and understanding. The culmination of his quest led him to a forgotten sanctuary, a place where the first pact had been made, a site older than any known civilization. Here, the core of the Earth's connection to the cosmos lay hidden, protected by riddles and guardians, both physical and spectral. As Michael and his team navigated the challenges of the sanctuary, the world outside teetered on the edge of transformation. The ancient sites flared with power, casting a protective web over the planet, while the entities marshaled their forces for a final push, their efforts creating natural and supernatural disasters that threatened to unravel the fabric of society. Inside the sanctuary, Michael discovered the original tablets of the pact, their inscriptions revealing the forgotten history of humanity's interaction with the cosmic entities and the true stakes of the convergence. The tablets offered not only the knowledge to restore the pact, but also the revelation of humanity's potential to transcend its earthly confines and to become true stewards of the cosmic balance. With the convergence imminent, the coalition faced the ultimate test. The rituals began, a synchronized global effort that harnessed the energies of the ancient sites, the will of the Guardians, and the collective spirit of humanity. The sanctuary, as the epicenter, channeled this vast energy, with Michael at its heart, guiding the flow and shaping the destiny of the world. The battle that ensued was not just of physical might, but of wills and beliefs, a clash of ideals and destinies where every soul on earth played a part. The entities, ancient and powerful, unleashed their full might, their forms bleeding into the earthly realm, casting shadows over the land. But they were met with the united front of humanity, empowered by the Guardians and led by Michael, their combined strength a beacon of light in the darkness. As the two forces collided, the sanctuary glowed with a celestial light, the tablets resonating with the energies of the earth and the cosmos, a symphony of power that sought to rewrite the rules of reality and to redefine the relationship between the earthly and the divine. In this crucible of cosmic forces, Michael stood as a mediator, a bridge between the human and the ethereal, his actions echoing through the ages, shaping the outcome of the convergence and the future of all existence. In the climactic moments of the convergence, the sanctuary's light reached its zenith, piercing the veil between worlds and illuminating the true nature of the cosmos. Michael, at the center of this maelstrom of energy, channeled the collective will of humanity and the ancient power of the Guardians, directing it against the tide of entities threatening to overwhelm the world. As the two forces met, reality itself buckled and twisted, creating a spectacle of light and shadow, sound and silence that spanned the physical and spiritual planes. The entities, vast and terrible in their might, clashed with the surge of human resilience and guardian strength, their forms dissolving and reshaping in the intense light of the sanctuary. In these final moments, Michael understood the essence of the pact. It was not a mere truce or a binding contract, but a mutual recognition of roles in the great tapestry of existence. Humanity and the entities were not enemies, but counterbalances, each essential to the maintenance of cosmic order. With this revelation, Michael guided the ritual to its completion, the ancient tablets radiating a profound energy that infused the very fabric of reality, sealing the thin places and reinforcing the boundaries between worlds. The entities, recognizing the renewal of the pact, ceased their assault, their forms retreating from the earthly realm, not in defeat, but in acknowledgement of the restored balance. The world quieted, the storms abated, and the ancient sites dimmed, their task completed. Humanity, having stood on the brink of annihilation, found itself not just preserved, but elevated, now aware of its place and responsibility within the wider cosmos. Michael, his role as mediator fulfilled, emerged from the sanctuary, forever changed. He had faced the horrors of the unknown and the awe of revelation, becoming a legend not only in the annals of the hidden world, but also in the collective memory of humanity. The aftermath of the convergence saw a new dawn for the world. The ancient sites became places of pilgrimage where people could connect with the guardians and the energies of the cosmos. The entities, no longer shadows in the mist, but recognized forces of the universe, interacted with humanity through the thin places, maintaining the balance under the terms of the renewed pact. Michael's journey, from a horrific car breakdown to the heart of cosmic mysteries, became a tale told through generations, a story of courage, discovery, and the unbreakable will to survive and understand. His legacy lived on in the guardianship of the thin places, in the coalition he formed, and in the newfound harmony between the earthly and the divine. In this new era, the horrors of the past became lessons for the future, and the fear of the unknown transformed into a quest for knowledge and understanding. Humanity, once isolated and ignorant of the broader cosmos, now walked hand in hand with the entities, guardians of the balance, stewards of the thin places, and participants in the great, ongoing story of existence.